Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome in on the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream. The countdown to the Texas opener with Colorado State continues, but the countdown to the Longhorns opening practice and actually players on a field working is over. It begins tomorrow, and today we got to meet with the coordinators, our once a year, our annual visit with Pete Kwiatkowski, Kyle Flood, and Jeff Banks, the three coordinators under Steve Sarkisian. Sark speaks for the team and the program during the regular season. Normally, we get to see Kyle Flood, Pete Kwiatkowski, and Jeff Banks one time, and sometimes in a bowl game, we'll get to talk to him as well. But we had that opportunity today, and I think there was some revealing conversations to be had surrounding the offense. Kyle Flood said he wants the Longhorns to be the most explosive offense in college football. Pete Kwiatkowski has a plan on defense, obviously, and Jeff Banks, special teams and tight ends. Looking forward to it. Rod Babers, Bobby Burton, we get to actually talk some football, some X's and O's. And then we'll all be out at the practice tomorrow to watch the first workout and hear from Sark. I mean, the talking's over. Time to play some ball, Rod.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. And I thought PK, I knew you don't get a chance to talk to these guys, so it actually is a big deal in the 40 acres, just the way Sark does it. And, that's not a judgment or anything. In his regime, he rather the coordinators focus on other things, and he wants one message coming out of the program all throughout the season. So it's really actually fun when you get a chance to talk to the coordinators. And PK, I liked what I took notes on all the comments they made, and I have the most notes for PK. So maybe I'm a defensive guy, but I felt like PK revealed the most. I think they all revealed a lot, but I feel like PK revealed more than the other coordinators. But maybe I'm off about that. I could just be giddy about PK.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And Bobby, your overall thoughts, and we'll start here coming up on the Tuesday live stream and get into some of the PK thoughts, Kyle Flood. But Bobby, your thoughts on what you saw today and what's to come.
Rod, that is hilarious that you say that. I'm sitting here. I took notes today. Obviously, I was there as well. One page on Kyle Flood, a page on the front and the back for PK, one page for Jeff Banks.
Yeah, it felt like that, right? It did. I agree with that. It felt like that. But I maybe, like I said, I could be a little biased, but I can't wait to get into it because I thought PK had a lot to say. And I thought the other coach, Jeff Banks, actually gave us a couple of good nuggets too about the tight ends. I didn't realize he was so high on Juan Davis. We'll get into that too a little bit. Yeah, no doubt.
All right, and we appreciate your comments, questions, and super chats throughout the course of this Tuesday night. We'll go about an hour plus, and talk red meat college football. Let's dive in, guys, because the notes are full on PK, Pete Kwiatkowski. There's a lot of conversation about coaching continuity. I think that's a fair one. This coaching staff has been together for the most part for going on year 4 now, which I think is a huge advantage for the players. We saw it, for so many years under Tom Herman and Charlie Strong, Mac Brown even at the end. They were rotating coordinators and assistants all the time, every offseason. Sark has kept the core of this group together, and that's why I think optimism is so high. But Kwiatkowski, kind of an overview, folks, talked about potential defensive strategies they may move towards, including some single high safety. He highlighted players like Baron Sorrell as leaders on the defensive line. And obviously, he's talked about focusing integrating new talents that have come in through the portal and additions that they have made. Andrew Makuba, the 3 defensive tackles, have been added. And Rod, I want to start with this. He said the big emphasis this year is the fundamentals of football, block destruction across the board, defensive back, D-line. They do it all the time. He said creating turnovers, creating fumbles. That is our emphasis. Also talk about tackling, bumping that up 5-10% from a year ago. What do you make from working on the fundamentals of football and block destruction? I like it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I expected him to specifically address issues related to the pass defense, but he really didn't. He talked about the defense improving as a whole, as a unit, as a group. He talked about the other part of that quote is, and we've heard Sark mention the same thing. How can we affect the quarterback? It doesn't always have to be sacks, but, they got to fill us. We got to make them uncomfortable. The other part of that is changing up. You mentioned changing up the pre-snap looks. Not just showing the shell coverage that we're going to end up being in. And he said trying to confuse quarterbacks. And then he also talked about tackling will help, trying to eliminate some of the run after catch, yards after the catch situation. He said all that stuff adds up. So I think in his mind, it's not just, oh, man, on the secondary's got to be better, got to play tighter coverage. He's looking at it as, oh, no, this is something that's a more comprehensive overall approach to improving the defense. The pass rush is going to affect the quarterback differently. He's talking about the pre-snap shell looks differently. And I think he's implying a Johnny Nansen influence without saying it. Now, he did mention Johnny Nansen and talked about him and talked about their time at Montana State together. And that's when, they first crossed paths as coaches. But he also said he's going to bring some of his ideas to the table. And I just wonder, those ideas, I believe, are going to be related to giving the defense, the pass defense specifically, an advantage in terms of disguise and exotic looks, which is something PK is really, he doesn't specialize in that. That's not really what he does. I think Johnny Nansen can bring in some of those exact looks. Think about his time in the Pac-12, the offenses and the high caliber, high elite quarterbacks he played against, first round quarterbacks. If he was able to discombobulate those guys, I think he can do the same with that Texas defense. So I think they're going to have some tricks up their sleeve coverage wise. And you also brought up that single high coverage also makes perfect sense from a Nansen influence perspective. Nobody played more single high safety in the Power 5 than Arizona last year. Nobody. Tons of they're upwards of 75% of single high coverage, whether it be cover 1, cover 3, allowed them to do a lot of manipulation with their pressure packages. Also, something we may see with PK this year a little bit more.
Yeah. Hey, Bobby, on the pass defense improvement, he talked about, he did say everything Rod just said, but he said we had the ball thrown on us, the third most in the country. No one could run on Texas, so they would just abandon the run. So they faced a lot of passing attempts. And he said when the teams throw the ball a lot, they're going to get yards. We'd like to have those numbers down, but that's not the end-all, be-all. Our pass efficiency was 33rd in the nation, which is respectable. We need to improve that. But he did talk about Jalen Gilbo he singled him out as the guy that has had a great offseason, which could give more defensive versatility, do more things with Jahdae Barron, he mentioned. That was encouraging to hear him single out Jalen Gilbo.
It was. And it's something we've been hearing behind the scenes quite a bit and been commenting here on Texas football, is it just how much they were liking what Jalen Gilbo was giving them this spring and this summer. From behind the scenes, what I've heard is it's been a consistent ascent, if that makes sense. And so coaches and PK talked about this today, guys. So did Jeff Banks. They like consistency. When they see a lot of people can be good on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but can you be good 7 days a week? Can you be good 3 months in a row, then 6 months in a row, etc.? And I get the sense from listening to people behind the scenes, Jalen Gilbo's been doing that, right? And that's giving him this. Another name that they came up with, PK kind of, he went and said Gilbo first, and then about 45 seconds later, he's answering another question, and he responded to it. And he said, "Oh yeah, Gavin Holmes is another one of those guys. I think he's getting ready to break out too." And so that was a little revealing, I thought. The cornerback out of New Orleans by way of Wake Forest.
Yeah.
I personally asked him about the cornerbacks and what he saw for that room. I think it's like we said, guys. I think it's Manny Muhammad, and then let's shake it out and see who wins. Right? Yeah. Let's roll the ball out on the field and see who wins that job. Holmes is one of those guys. Javion Cole, talked a little bit about him. Talked about Warren Roberson as well, and then said that he said Jahdae Barron may get a look at safety, corner, whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot at play there, and I think it's interesting. You mentioned the one single high safety, Rod. I got the sense that is going to be part of the game plan. Just from being there and the way he responded to that, if that makes sense, kind of like acknowledged it. He didn't necessarily say it, but he acknowledged it more than you never necessarily would. So I do agree with you as well, Aaron and Rod, about how much more revealing he was. There weren't a lot of cliches in PK's answers.
No.
Yep. And they were clearly thought. And I'm not saying Banks or Flood were, but they didn't necessarily reveal quite as much. I love what he had to say about Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, did y'all hear the quote, Aaron? Did you hear it?
I did.
Unbelievable. I mean, he basically told Anthony Hill. He said I teased him a little bit this offseason or after the bowl game. I said, "You're a great football player, but you're not a great linebacker yet."
Yeah.
And he goes, so what does that mean? He goes, I meant it as a compliment. I'm like, he's got the nose for the football. He's got a feel for the game, but you're not there yet on the absolute dotting your I's, crossing your T's in every single way. But man, we talked about Jalen Gilbo just now and how he kind of gave him an endorsement.
Yep.
I don't know what you would call that he gave Anthony Hill, but I think I saw his eyes twinkle a little when he talked about Anthony Hill. He likes him some Anthony Hill. I'll just put it that way.
Well, and why not, Rod? I mean, he's a 5-star kid, one of the top players in the country coming in. And he said, we put him off the edge as a freshman, less thinking that way, just go, sick the ball essentially. But he said his natural position is inside linebacker. They want him to fill the role of Jalen Ford. And, he had such great instincts and football IQ. And what the quote that Bobby said, that he's a hell of a player, just not a very good linebacker yet. To me, that's a key for this Texas's defense's ceiling. If you can put Anthony Hill where Jalen Ford was for 2 years making plays, but he brings that plus athleticism, size, the strike ability, everything that he brings. I mean, that would be huge for this defense. And it sounds like, PK, that's the plan.
Yeah. And I think, on passing downs, there are different things you probably can do with him if you want to put him on the edge on, predictable passing situations. But I think, now I'm not concerned. I'm curious about the other linebacker, right? Is it Benda? Is Benda the guy? Or is it, Mo Blackwell? The linebacker skill sets are they vary so much. Leon Lafau is another one of those guys. Who's going to help you stabilize that linebacker position when you do want to move around Anthony Hill just a little bit, or you want to blitz him from the interior, which I think they're going to do a lot more this year with Johnny Nance. My man CJ Vogel talks about that a lot. He's got some great numbers on that. Blitz him through those interior gaps. Get him matched up on a matchup on an interior, a less athletic interior offensive lineman who stands no chance with a guy like that. So I think you'll see some things like that on passing downs. The hope is that the formula that Sark has, and it's actually proven true offensively his first 3 years at Texas, that he's got an offense that can get you a lead a lot of the time. Not every game, but most games, a lot of games, he can get you a lead at some point. Can you keep the lead? Can you maintain the lead the entire game? And I think that's Sark always echoing complementary football. And I think that's what PK and the defense are trying to achieve right now, is help him get that complementary football. And now when you do get up in games, maybe you can move an Anthony Hill around. We'll talk about the edges here in a second too, because he talked about the depth at the edge position. But I think that's what they're trying to achieve on defense now, that when they do get a lead, can they keep the lead? And he talked about what they said, the third most pass attempts seen of any defense in college football. That was predictable at one point, and Texas couldn't take advantage of that predictability of teams being one-dimensional against them for an entire half. And that's something I think they're trying to rectify, or I know they're trying to rectify this year.
On Texas football on a Tuesday night, it's coordinator conversation. We got to visit with each of the three coordinators for 30, 40 minutes today down on campus. Hey, Rod, to a couple of those points, big picture, the single high safety for our audience, what does that mean? How does it confuse a quarterback? How does it change the things you can do? And then the coaching continuity I talked about to start this thing. When you hear about the consistency and development of Jalen Gilbo, Anthony Hill, how important is that? You played for Dwayne Aquina all your years and pretty much a rock-solid staff. I have to think that's part of watching these guys get better and better, staying in the same system, hearing from the same coach every day.
There's no question. I mean, then everything becomes second nature, muscle memory. The system is ingrained because you've heard the terminology is all the same. The coaching strategy method is you're accustomed to it. You know what's expected. So as a player, you should kind of, at that point, you should be able to flourish once you don't have to worry about, do I need to learn the system? Do I need to adjust my, expectations and my methods to whatever the coach wants? Do I know the technique that they want with all of these different coverages, all those different things that you're usually thinking about? You shouldn't be thinking about that your second, third year in with the same coach, same system. And that's what you have now with Texas on defense. Hell, you got Texas everywhere pretty much like that. So these veteran players, they should be thriving right now, right? Playing their best football, the best versions of themselves, because now they've been in these systems and they're, like I said, ingrained, if you will, in them, and everything's second nature. I will say that also in terms of the continuity, hopefully it helps with the units that have to work together, mostly the O-line and the secondary. There's some units that literally, you can see them, they almost are working on a string together. If you look at them from the coach's view, the bird's eye view, and that usually is the secondary, and that's the O-line. So I always feel like continuity should help those groups more than other groups, just because they truly are working as a unit. O-line, they're expected to be one of the top 10 groups in the country this year. But the secondary, it should help them a lot because they're working together now, and so many of their responsibilities and their defensive obligations are based on each other fulfilling, their roles, and everybody doing their job. That's not the case with most of the positions, but secondary and O-line, I expect them to benefit the most from the continuity. They should anyway.
Absolutely. Good stuff right there, guys. All right, we'll talk some about the other coordinators coming up, but on single high, Rod, what does it mean for our audience? Because you can play two high safeties and play the shell.
Oh, yeah.
What does single high allow?
Yeah, single high, basically, you hear people call it middle field closed, the middle of the field closed, single high. Basically means you got one deep safety in the middle of the field. They call it closed because the middle of the field is closed. They close it because there's a safety sitting right there. Middle of the field open, which they call it kind of a MOFO coverage, MOFO, middle of field open. That's two high safeties, but the middle of the field right between those two highs is open. So they call it middle of the field open. So he likes to, Johnny Nance likes to play like a single high, which is your cover three. That's your cover one, right? That's most of your man coverage and cover three, because you're going to have a deep middle field safety, and he's responsible for a third in cover three. And then you have your two corners or whatever variation you wanted on those other thirds. Man coverage, man free, with one free deep player, all right, to help you on the deep routes, the post route, the 9 routes. That's what they use in cover one. We know Texas wants to play more man coverage. Sarkis on the record saying we want to play more man coverage. Nick Saban is one of his mentors. Nick Saban has said man coverage is the best and most effective coverage in football. Problem is, everybody don't have the athletes to do it. The NFL, actually, they're playing more zone in the NFL than they've ever played before. Why is that? Look at the wide receivers and how damn talented they are. Look how freaky the wide receiver class is now that's coming. It's like that. I may have one DB that can run with those guys. I ain't got 4 or 5 of them that can run with all of them. And you can stockpile receivers all over the place. So they're playing more zone than they've ever played before, proving Nick Saban's point. Not everybody can play man like that. That's why programs that play a lot of man in college are your Ohio States and your LSUs. They play a lot of man, right? Because, man, they're recruiting the best athletes in the country to do it. And hell, you get that against Michigan too when Wink Martindale's out there with Will Johnson, the best cornerback in football. They'll play a lot of man. Why? They got the dogs to do it. So that's what you get. And Texas, I think, wants to play more man coverage. They want to play more bump and run man coverage. They did in the last 2 games of the season last year. Actually, last 3 games, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Washington. Didn't work out well against Washington, as we know, playing bump and run on the field side and the boundary. Texas always plays bump and run on the boundary, but they want to play more bump and run on the field. And my belief is they want to get rid of field and boundary altogether and just have corners that can play either. And they no longer, because when you have a field and a boundary, you have rules, right? You have very rigid rules to your defense that make you predictable. And really good offensive coordinators can take advantage of those rules when they know them. And that's like having a nickel that can't travel, when you have formation in the boundary, things like that is stuff that'll get you in trouble. So I think that's why they want versatility. So now my nickel doesn't need to travel. My safety can come down, bump down, be the nickel, and Janae Barron can bump back and be the safety. All right, versatility gives you options and get solutions. And so Johnny Nance's defenses, a lot of cover, played more single high than any other team in the Power 5, and they love exotic looks. So my prediction is more single high from Johnny Nance's influence and more exotic coverages, exotic looks, a lot of funky pre-snap looks and disguises, because now you have some of the veterans in the back end that should be able to pull that off.
Yeah, and we saw Johnny Nance's defense last year give guys like Michael Penix a lot of trouble in the Pac-12. A lot of those top quarterbacks out there were struggling with that because, again, if you can make that quarterback think for a second with the disguise coverage and playing better man coverage, be stickier back there, as you talk about it, Rod, those pressures become sacks. And that's what Texas is trying to add to, because we just had Todd with a great point saying if you're going to play man, you better have a pass rush because you can't leave those guys out there that long. That's obviously the goal with the edge play and the the different types of edge players they have. I want to pick that up in a minute. Let me tell you about our great partner tonight on a Tuesday night for the live stream, Texas alum Mark Saunders. We appreciate him when it comes to protecting your stuff. I think all the time, man, is all my stuff protected? We've had floods and hurricanes and all kinds of wildfires going on out there right now. Wouldn't it be great to have a place that protects it all? Well, that's what 35 years of experience with Texas alum Mark Saunders and the Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance you're going to need. Everything from your home, your car, your boat, your motorcycle, RV, and ATV across the board. Mark is the guy. From 35 years of experience, as we mentioned. If you're looking for someone local, Austin, Round Rock area, give Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office a call tomorrow, 512-218-8571. 512-218-8571. So ask yourself, are you in good hand? Is all your stuff in good hands? Again, more than 3.5 decades of experience you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders, 512-218-8571. We appreciate Mark very, very much on a Tuesday night. We're going to learn coming up about how you can help and be a part of or be a partner with us on the On Texas Football channel into football season. And let's do that right now with Cody Clearman. Hey, Cody, how you doing, man?
Aaron, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. We bumped heads there in Dallas for a couple days, I think, at Media Days. That was fun, and good to see you. So to tell us where you're from, what you're up to, and what you're going to be doing with the OTF.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about what's going on with On Texas Football. Born and raised Texas native, so I'm excited to be working with such an awesome company, and we've got a lot of really cool things that are coming up for the season. We got stuff that's available right now. So what I'm really excited about, guys, is just the different platforms that we have available for potential sponsors, potential partners. A lot of things that are available for local, Texas companies, whether it be inside the state of Texas or even outside the state of Texas. Like, we've got some things that if you're a local business owner, if you have somebody in your family or in your circle of influence that's a business owner that would like to talk about a potential sponsorship with On Texas Football, man, we would love to field that conversation. And, Bobby and I have talked about it. It's ontexasfootball@gmail.com. If you guys know of anybody, we've got, like I said, the time in University of Texas football history is never going to be greater than what it is right now, as far as the exposure, as far as the excitement for what's coming up. And so if you want an opportunity to get your name out there, to really be a part of a brand that's growing with On Texas Football, that's has an amazing reputation in the circles that we find ourselves in, now's the time. And we've got some good outlets. And so ontexasfootball@gmail.com, we're going to take care of, getting you or your colleague or whoever it is in the right place and letting them know what we have available.
Cody, you got a bunch of Longhorn stuff there in the back. It looks like you got a wood cutout of everything. There you go.
Yeah. I've got like, it's funny because I've got some stuff that's been made for me, some stuff that's been bought for me. The real cool thing, that really bright orange, that's a buddy of mine who actually owns a business in Alabama, and he makes trailer hitch covers. And I was like, can you possibly, I don't know if you would get run out of the state to make a Longhorn logo, but could you possibly do it? He hooked me up like awesome. So yeah, and I'll tell you what, that might be somebody, if y'all are interested in a trailer hitch cover that would be like that, let me know, because I can get that thing ordered for him. But and he may be thank you, Bobby. You just reminded me of him. So that might be somebody I maybe reaching out to. So yeah, just I got all my stuff up here, all my loved ones, and just all the fun stuff that sits behind me every day to remind me how blessed I am, right?
It's awesome. Cody, good to see you. And I know, Bobby, you can speak to, for marketing purposes for our audience out there that do own businesses, locally in Austin or statewide. The reach of On Texas Football is unbelievable. It's growing by the day. And as Cody said, and you can pick that up, Cody, it's the number of subscribers, the reach from all over the great state, all over the country is what you're looking for. Impressions, and it's a sticky audience. Rod talks about sticky secondary, sticky audience that hangs around and wants to support the products that they love on the OTF channel. I know that's important.
I appreciate it. I really do, Cody. Thank you so much, buddy. Thanks to if without sponsors, we would not have the show we have and the people that we have involved, whether it's Aaron, Rod, Jerry Hamilton, CJ Vogel, who's going to come on and join me in a minute here, as well as just everybody involved. Blake Monroe in the morning too. So we appreciate it. Cody, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to somebody else real quick. If y'all don't mind real quick. The guy that I want to say hello to is a young 10-year-old kid named Major. Hey. Major is he's got his birthday today, and it's a good friend of mine's son. Major, happy birthday, buddy. And I got to add one more thing. He's got 2 siblings named Campbell and Royal. So, wow.
Well done.
This is the way it is.
I like that.
But I appreciate you guys. And thanks again to Cody as he takes out there. I'm going to give way to CJ here, guys. Y'all have fun the rest of the way. Talk a little offense, if you don't mind.
Let's do that.
I'll give Kyle Flood some love.
Let's do
Thanks,
that.
I'll see y'all out there tomorrow at practice, guys.
See you, brother.
See you down there, Bobby. See you down there, guys.
Thanks,
hey, hello, CJ Vogel. How are you, bud? How was your thoughts? And we've been through Pete Witkowski. Rod's got pages and pages of notes on the defensive side and single high safeties and exotic coverages. We went some, football porn for a couple of minutes there on the defensive side with Rod Babers, but we'll do some offense. Your thoughts from the coordinators today?
Yeah, that's a nice little smooth transition, right? Rod, you got the defense covered, and we'll get a little JV quarterback in here to come talk about the offense. I like that idea. So, I liked what I had to hear from PK, and Jeff Banks talked a little bit about, the special teams and also some tight ends and some guys standing out there. So I really liked what I heard from Coach Flood, right? He talked about his offensive line. They're expected to take that next step. They talked about the red zone and, what's going to change. Well, they took it upon themselves and almost a personal challenge to, kind of step in and say, all right, this is the area in which we expect to dominate. I'm not sure if the philosophy for Sarkisian's going to change all that much, right? He likes to get in the red zone and he likes to run the football, kind of overpower and overwhelm folks with that running game. Didn't work all too much a year ago, but that's still the philosophy that remains, and it's up to the offensive line to move those bodies and win that, kind of personal war, right? You talk about it when it's a one-on-one coverage, Rod, and you're going up against that wide receiver snap after snap after snap. It becomes a little bit of a personal challenge. And in the trenches, it's very much the same, give or take a few snaps when, a third down group comes on or whatnot, but you're going against that same person, button heads going chest to chest every single possession. So it becomes personal. So Coach Flood said there's no substitute for just going out there and simply getting the job done. So we'll see if that carries on into the season. But for the offensive line, obviously, Cam Williams is the right tackle. They return all 4 of the other starters. But, hey, don't forget about Cole Hudson. Don't forget about Nato Umeozulu. Don't forget about Malik Agbo. Those are 3 other guys that he mentioned really enjoying and seeing how they've developed over the offseason. They have 8 guys that he feels comfortable about right now. You got to love that. And they also mentioned 9 wide receivers. So talk about depth, not only just at the offensive line, not only just at quarterback, not only just at running back, which has 3 really consistent pieces right now, and then obviously the 2 freshmen, but 9 wide receivers, which has not been the case here at Texas since this staff took over. Really encouraging for, again, if a guy goes down, it is the game of football, and that will happen at some point this year, unfortunately, right? It's just a matter of the fact. You do have the pieces and the horses to maintain that steady level and consistency on the field that we've seen so far. So I thought that was my number 1 takeaway. Really liked it so far.
Yeah. Who are the 9 wide receivers? So we know it's Bolden, Golden, Cook, Moore, Bond, right?
You're gonna have to throw Ryan Niblett in there, and we'll see who of that freshman bunch. Is it an Aaron Butler? Is it a Parker Livingstone? Parker, there were times that in the spring where Parker turned some heads. You don't have a 6'4" wide receiver on the roster right now. He also has, I think some sneaky speed, right? He ran the 200 at Lush Rider. Yeah. And he also had a 60-yard touchdown on the receiving end from Trey Owens in a spring scrimmage. So he can break away a little bit like Sarkisian likes, and he brings a different type of, frame, if you will. So I don't know if you see that, circle of trust expand beyond 6 to 9, but you got a lot of talented bodies in the room. That's 100% sure now.
That's true.
Yeah. I did the same thing, Rod. I was jotting them down. I got, you guys can debate this, but the top 3 right now, if you ran out to play Colorado State, probably Isaiah Bond, Jonte Cook, Matthew Golden, maybe. Then DeAndre Moore, Silas Bolden, Ryan Wingo. Those would be the next 3. And then it's a great point by CJ with a good question from Rod on the next 3. Yeah, I mean, now you're talking Ryan Niblett, Parker Livingstone, Aaron Butler, and that's a luxury. A lot of receiver talk. I know Rod and CJ at media days and now today, the passing game, Quinn Ewers, all that. And the thing I took from Kyle Flood today, Rod, was just confidence. He said pretty bluntly, we want to be the most explosive offense in the country. That's our goal. And he mentioned 4 returning starters on an offensive line and not just starters. I mean, Kelvin Banks is a top 10 draft pick if he has a great year. You know, Hayden Connor and Jake Majors have combined for 75 starts in their career at Texas, something along those lines, pushing 70. DJ Campbell, Cam Williams, both highly recruited players that have gotten a lot of playing time. He called it a rare year and an enjoyable situation to be in. And he said you can raise the bar of expectations when you have that many returning veteran offensive linemen.
Yeah, I'm with you. It seemed like he was calling his shot, right? It's like he came a little short of calling his own shot there. I'm with you. He does sound really confident, and they should be. I mean, how many teams in the country, actually, I think it's 4 now that I think about it, return their OC, DC, strength and conditioning coach, special teams coach, and their starting quarterback is a veteran, multi-year starting quarterback. I think it's just 4 of them in all of college football. So you have that continuity. You can tell it is, I think, right now a reason, one big reason for the optimism and for that confidence you're talking about that you can kind of feel, all right, from Kyle Flood. And I'll say another thing is they know right now that they can develop talent. The recipe works. They saw it. The last 2-3 years with the coaches, they've seen, okay, their blueprint, their philosophy, their ideology, it actually works. It paid off last year when they made the Final Four. So now I think they have more buy-in, and I think they didn't have great buy-in before, but now total buy-in from everybody, all the players, everyone included. That's a little bit different too. Because now there is total belief. There is total buy-in, I should say. It's you went past belief and faith because now you have evidence that it works. So now everybody, I think there's a new kind of confidence and I think a reaffirmation, if you will, by the team that, hey, man, this is a renewed sense of devotion to it, the obsession that Sark talks about. So I think that's part of it. The only thing that can hold back this offense, and I think it could be one of the most explosive in the country, if they don't fix the red zone issues, we assume they're fixed. And the continuity and the chemistry between Quinn and the wide receivers. That's the only things I could see that could be a little off. And also, I'll throw out their third down offense, which hasn't been great. Texas is like 70th in the country in third down offense the last couple of years. It doesn't matter because the offense is really explosive, but that could add up too if, some things are off chemistry-wise between Quinn and the wide receivers and affects third down, also affects red zone issues. So I wonder if that's one of the only things I can see holding it back. And that can't last all season. That's maybe at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And CJ, again, it's with Quinn and the receivers, that is the big conversation. But I took one of the things Kyle Flood said about the rare year with such an experienced and talented offensive line. He also mentioned, having a running backs coach like Tashard Choice. He said it's such a secret weapon, he called him, to have a former NFL running back who teaches pass protection and works with the running backs on how important that is to pick up blitzes and protect the quarterback. And I look at that running back room that you mentioned, CJ, Jonathan, with Jaden Blue, CJ Baxter, and Trey Wisner. Texas was the only Power 5 school a year ago to have 3 running backs with 500 yards from scrimmage and at least 4 touchdowns with Brooks, Baxter, and Blue. I'm assuming they're planning on that again, right? I mean, both three backs Jonathan Brooks was 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. CJ Baxter was 815 yards and 5. Jaden Blue was 533 and 4. I don't think there's any side of Kyle Flood and Tashard Choice. I don't think they can do that again and maybe better with CJ Baxter, Jaden Blue, and Trey Wisner.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's 2 parts to this that I wanted to touch on. First is, kind of the expertise of a Tashard Choice, right? We're available to go to these practices for about 15 to 20 minutes if they're feeling generous. And I love when they are feeling generous because we get to see a little bit more and get to unveil that cover on Texas football just a little bit more. And one of those afternoons that we were there to see a little bit of an extended practice, they were practicing at DKR. And so, you see at times the linebackers and wide receivers kind of go toe-to-toe when it comes to blocking drills, one-on-one routes, whatever it might be. This day at DKR, they were in the end zone closest to the media, and we got to see at the time, it was DeMarvion Overshone and Bijan Robinson going head-to-head in what was a pass blocking drill, pass protection for the running backs, kind of running them up the edge, running the circle, if you will, coming around and just preventing them from getting to the quarterback. And, Bijan was well established at the time. This was going into his 2022 season where he is, in contention and likely to win the Doak Walker. He gets obliterated right away from DeMarvion Overshone. He puts a little juke on him. He gets around him. He sacks the quarterback, right? Rashard Choice, instead of going on to the next and saying, Bijan, get him next time, says, nope. Roshan back out. Bijan hop back up there. You're doing this again until you get it right. DeMarvion pops back in, gets him again. Bijan, I know you're a 5-star. I know that you're, the face of the program. But if you're going to play and play for us, you're going to do the little things right. And that's exactly what he did. He hopped back up there for a third time. Bijan this time, I think, took it probably a little personal. Put a good lick on DeMarvion and kind of silenced, what was a lot of, cheering and chirping from the defensive side of the ball. But that's the coaching that you get with Rashard Choice. And that's the kind of level that you expect and need if you're going to take that step from a team that contends for the college football playoff versus a team that contends for the national championship. So that's my Rashard Choice nugget and how important it is as the guy who has been to the NFL and seen what it takes to get there and stay there because, Rod, what's that average length of an NFL career? Only about 2.5, 3 years?
3.5, yep.
It's not too long. So to see a guy that's been there and understood it and what it takes to get there and then come and teach it while being very personable and relatable, very important to have him on staff. I think it's very important there as well. But that's one of my big stories that I've always kind of held on to because it does speak to who Rashard Choice is as a coach and as a person, because regardless of what level that you're expected to compete with or what, skins you have on the wall as a college athlete, he's going to push you to get to that maximum ceiling. And I know Steve Sarkisian and the rest of that staff is very thankful that they are. But I wanted to talk a little bit about PK as well, Kyle Flood mentioning what's to come at the running back spot. Because a lot of the conversation's been, is it going to be Jaden Blue? Is it going to be CJ Baxter? Who are going to be, or which of those two is going to be the guy, if you will? We may not find out until week 1, right? It's a good problem to have. But when he was asked about those two guys coming in and being standouts this year, he said, yeah, all the attention's on them. But listen, we got another cat that's pretty talented, and you're sure as hell going to know his name by the end of the season, and that's Trey Wisner. Throw him into that conversation as well at the running back spot, because everything that we've heard from Quinn Ewers, from Steve Sarkisian, today from Kyle Flood again, Trey Wisner has been a guy that's turned heads. And I'm not sure what it's been, what that flip has been that's been switched, but at some point in the last year or so, anytime the ball's in his hands, he finds ways to make plays. When the ball's not in his hands, you see it on special teams. You see him as a gunner now. He finds ways to make plays. So very encouraging as well. And again, speaks to the depth that is so important for Texas. Because when a Jonathan Brooks goes down, it's very nice to have a Jaden Blue step up and say, yep, that's a future NFL guy. So Trey Wisner, I think, is in that kind of conversation right now to take that next step up and certainly be a guy that you could certainly rely on should that be the case or necessity this year as well.
More pony package.
Deep room, double two running backs. And Rod, that 3.5 years of the NFL is about 3.5 quarters if you get your quarterback ear hold a couple times on a blitzing player, right? I mean, you don't last a day if you can't pick up that blitz in the National Football League, and that's obviously something Rashard Choice has brought. Rod, in your estimation, how good can that backfield be with the thunder of a CJ Baxter? We heard Nick Saban praising him at SEC Media Days and what a talent he is. Jaden Blue and the explosiveness. And CJ just talked about the Swiss Army knife that Trey Wisner can be, one of those DeSoto kids that just comes in knowing how to play ball. That's a lot of ammo right there behind what Kyle Flood called a rare year on the offensive line and a third-year quarterback. That could be the most explosive offense in the conference.
It could be. And I think one of the keys to them being explosive is the versatility and variety of the offense and using personnel groupings like the pony package, which is the most explosive personnel package that they've used since Sark has been the play caller here at Texas. Like, there's nothing more explosive. It ain't just a Rojo and a Bijan thing. It goes beyond that. We found it out last year too. Hell, even look at the last game they played in the bowl game, right, against Washington, what they averaged. They're near 10 yards per play. on on that first drive out of the pony package. I think the pony package in that game, they ended up running it 9 times, and they averaged them to 10 yards per play. But I digress. So more of that, but also more of your empty sets, more of your Big 11, Big 12, the extra offensive linemen, the 6 O-line package, more of that, because all of those personnel groupings have disproportionately higher rates of explosive play rates. And, even more motion. I was listening to Mike Zimmer talk earlier this week, and they asked him a great question. They asked Mike Zimmer, who's the new DC of the Cowboys, hey, what concept, what offensive idea trends give you problems these days? And he said, pre-snap motion. He said, I hate it. He said it just because it redistributes the football at its basic rudimentary level. It's just a numbers game, guys. You're just trying to win the numbers game. If you're winning the numbers game in the box, then you're losing it. All right, outside in the pass game. If you win the numbers game on the outside in the back end, then you're losing it in the box, right? That's what the RPO is based on. You got the numbers advantage, you hand it off. You don't have numbers advantage, boom, you're gonna throw it. That's the RPO. So he's talked about how you can change the numbers on each side of the ball, right? You can go from a 2x2 to a 3x1. Guys, that changes the rules on defense when y'all do that. Yeah. Right, when that happens, I got to change my rules on defense automatically. Everybody's got to be on the same page about what rules that we are changing to or what we are essentially adapting and audibling to as a defense. And then now they're snapping it on the run. You talked about that too. Like they're motioning at the snap while the guys are in motion, which, like I said, I'm changing the rules of the defense. And now while I'm changing those rules, they are snapping it real time. And you have to process and also be on the same page defensively. And Sark loves pre-snap motion, uses about between 50 and 55% of the time. He can use it 75% of the time. I think they should use it more. I mean, you could argue, Miami Dolphins use it over 80% of the time. 80% of their plays. Kyle Shanahan's at 75%. The Rams are at 70%. Sark's actually being conservative. He's still ahead of the SEC rate, but he's being a bit conservative. So a lot of things, this offense, guys, this crazy thing about it, they actually have a lot of room to grow, considering how explosive they were last year. Think about it. They were 70th and 73rd in third down offense the last 2 years. Your red zone offense the last 2 years has been average to bad. Last year, you were 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in red zone. Man, if you just improve in those two areas and start using more explosive personnel groupings and using more of the cheat codes that I talk about, dude, that offense actually could be the most explosive offense in the country. It really could be. I'm not joking. I believe it. I got the data to prove it. I'm telling you, it could be. They just, I think Sark's a moderate when he should be an extremist at times when it comes to the offense.
Rob, I thought you brought up a great point in terms of being outnumbered on the defensive side of the ball. It changes what you do defensively, but even, at times, and I noticed this in my rabbit hole into the red zone, right? There are times where Texas, maybe doesn't adjust into running or, throwing into an area where they're outnumbered pre-snap. And so I'll go back and look at this because there were 2 plays where, I charted 155 plays of Texas in the red zone a year in 2023. And that included down and distance, where the ball was, the hash marker, what the result was, the broad concept of the play. And every now and then I made a couple notes, just kind of miscellaneous, like, bad throw. Dropped catch. Great execution, wheel route, stepped on the line on the catch. Whatever it might have been. There were 2 out of the 155 where I made a note that said Texas ran right into a very outnumbered front.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in terms of, odd or even, but you run to the right side, you got 3 blockers, and there's 5 guys. Well, you do the math there, 3 to block 5, odds are you're not going to have very much success there. It was a play, it was outside zone scheme against Wyoming on the 2-yard line. Texas lost 3 yards. They were outnumbered in that same kind of concept. There's another concept against Oklahoma on the 6-yard line where they ran what they don't run too often, which is a jet handoff to Jordan Whittington. Again, 3 to block 4. Very tough to reach when you're out leveraged and you're outnumbered to that side. All of a sudden, you lose 3 or 4 yards, and now you're back at the 10 on third down going into the end zone. That's a much different task than being on the 5, the 6, or the 2 or the 3, right? So that's one thing that I look at, and that kind of just sparked a little light bulb to go off in my brain is, what's Sarkisian going to be able to do in Quinn Ewers' ear for those 25 seconds when they get to the line for about 20 seconds and all of a sudden looks at the formation, looks at what the defense is giving alignment-wise and says, hold on, flip, exit, red alert, whatever it is that their code word is, to get out of that look, get into something else, and then execute the final 15 seconds into a successful play call, because you have that luxury now. And no longer is it just, we called the play. Let's see if it works. But that's one thing that I did notice. It didn't happen too often. They were normally pretty good at it. But those are, drives in which, and I looked back, Texas didn't score touchdowns on those drives, in which Texas, again, it was a 7-point lead going into the fourth quarter against Wyoming. And then Oklahoma, you obviously lose by, 3, 4. So you would like to have had a touchdown on those drives 100%. I guarantee it.
Good stuff, CJ. Good stuff.
Yeah, that is. I enjoyed that deep dive stuff you did there, CJ, on the red zone, because that's a huge factor in improvement area for Texas this year. And Rod, you said the extremist versus the moderate. Maybe with all this experience and a third-year quarterback and headset, that we do see Sark being more of an extremist and trusting his quarterback, because the best quarterbacks, execute in the red zone, they execute on third down, and not just get you into the right play, they get you, as CJ said, out of a bad play. They're going to get you out of a negative play. And maybe this year with Quinn, 1 year more advanced, has the freedom, liberty, and the trust and they get confidence in himself to get out of those bad plays that can turn in. Just avoid negative plays, move on to the next play where you can get explosive.
Yeah, because it's like Bill Parcells, you always say, in most games you end up, when you rewatch, you realize you beat yourself. And you're like, oh man, the mistakes we made, and like you said, the negative plays, a sack here or there. If you can just stay away from those plays most of the time, give yourself a much better chance. And a veteran quarterback like Quinn should know this offense now. I remember he should know his offense really well. I remember Sam Ehlinger. I think it was his third year in that Tom Herman offense. And Tom Herman told me, he said, Sam Ehlinger knows the offense better than I do now. Like, Sam Ehlinger will come to me now with suggestions about the offense. Like, hey, you know what? I think this would be a better idea. I think we could, there's a more efficient way to do this. Or, hey, there's an added element we could add to this that I think would really make the play more effective. And Sam Herman said he would come to him with creative ideas about the playbook because he knew it so much. It had become Sam's offense now. And that's what the Tom Herman was trying to say. He was like, he actually loved that. And all offensive play callers and coordinators want that moment where, it's no longer my offense. I got a quarterback I've had in this offense so long, it's his offense. It's his offense now. It's our offense now, right? He has ownership of it. And I want that for Quinn this year. I want him to have ownership of that offense. And when we talked to Sark, I want somebody to ask him about that. Do you think now that it's y'all's offense, you think Quinn now has mastery over the offense, where we can now, especially what you brought up, CJ, is a great point, the headset communication, now can we, hell with that, you definitely should be able to trust him to make checks and audibles at the line of scrimmage, real time, based on the pre-snap looks you're given. So that's what I want to know. Can he become, a true game executive this year with that offense, because he knows it so well, and that basically he almost can suggest things to Sark when he comes back, and Sark can go, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, I remember Sark when he was the OC at Alabama, CJ, when they won the national championship, talking about, Devontae Smith and those guys, Najee Harris. It was their offense, and they all knew what they were supposed to be doing on every play, not just the quarterback, right? Yep. And he said that's what made us really unstoppable that year, was not just the quarterback had ownership of the offense, but the entire offense owned the offense and understood why the route they're running is important, even if they're not getting the ball, why the block they're making is vital, even though it's not coming their way. Those kind of things, that is when an offense takes a step to where it becomes one of those, Alabama offenses that Sark has been around before.
My favorite story from those Alabama teams, and there's video of it, I think someone tweeted it out, maybe the minute or game in which it happened, is, you see Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs or Jalen Waddle or whoever was the combination of the two. Before the possession starts, Sarkisian's on the field, and, they get the play call, and all of a sudden the two wide receivers look at one another and it's on. They're playing rock, paper, scissors to see who's getting the money route because they know that they're about to score a touchdown on it, because they understand what the play call is, what the route concepts is, and to Aaron, to your point, how important the other routes are to set up, the secondary to react or to adjust. But when you can get to that level, and and Rod, there are times I think as quarterbacks, you can kind of sit there and say, oh, I know they've been giving us this. Look, if we hit a wheel route or we call a wheel route before I snap the football, I know that there's going to be a great opportunity for us to score a touchdown on this because of what we've seen. These wide receivers at Alabama at the time, and they spoke about it, is, yeah, we know what plays we're going to score on because we're comfortable with Mac Jones. We're comfortable with Tua Tagovailoa. We know that Sarkisian's setting us up for a reason. But that was always my favorite thing is, that video of those two guys walking out on the field playing tic-tac-toe, and you see the loser kind of drop his head because he knows it's about to be a 60-yard touchdown taken away from his stat sheet right after. But if Texas ever gets to that point, you're looking at a really explosive offense, one that I think could carry the Longhorns into a top 4 seed. Now, of course, defense is another thing. But that offense specifically, I think, has the firepower to compete with just about anybody in the conference and the country going into 2024.
We'll get into some Jeff Banks conversations here coming up as we are on the On Texas Football channel on a Tuesday night live stream. We'll take your super chats too before we're done here. So questions, fire them away for myself and CJ and Rod. Bobby was with us earlier. Hey, guys, Rod, I wanted your thoughts because we talked defense with Bobby. We talked about headset communication. I thought it was interesting that PK mentioned they haven't decided yet who's going to have the headset. Is it a linebacker or a safety? I know we've talked about. I talked about at SEC Media Days with Jahdae Barron. If Anthony Hill, you don't want to put too much in his ears when he's trying to learn the position. Maybe Jahdae Barron is a 5th-year player, but he did say today they haven't decided yet who's going to have that communication on the defensive side of the ball. Sark's been clear to say it's different because when teams go fast, we still have to do sideline communication so everybody gets the play in real time. Because maybe you don't have time to communicate it. But I thought that was interesting from PK today.
Yeah, I actually thought that was surprising too, and I almost wondered if he knows and he doesn't want to reveal it somehow because he thinks maybe it could give the opponent some type of strategic advantage. I'm not sure, and I would have loved him I know they want it to be somebody who doesn't have to leave the field, right? And so Texas rotates a lot. That's the thing. All right, and I think they rotate a little too much. I think they should be a little bit more judicious about those rotations. Maybe go with lineups of different guys with some starters, not the wholesale rotations they usually do, but I digress. That's a different discussion. But I know they have to, just based on, just the logistics of it, have somebody who's going to be on the field as much as possible. And it seems like Anthony Hill right now. Last year was Jalen Ford and PK. You probably got this, CJ. You probably got the numbers, but that's who PK trusted basically to be in there every down, any situation, did not matter, sub packages or whatever. And that's who you want to be in there. Because I don't know the rules. I'm assuming, I guess you could have multiple, as long as it's not multiple on the field at the same time, you could have multiple guys with it and then, rotate whoever has the headset. That seems like a lot to keep up with during the game and try to figure that out. You got to come up with that rotation before the game and figure it out. So I think it'll probably end up being Anthony Hill just because, or Jahdae Barron, and they have Jahdae Barron out there at nickel all the time, which is basically their base defense, and then they move him out to corner, and he can do it from the corner spot when they actually. So I don't actually know. Or you can do it from the safety spot. Maybe they want to put him at safety when they want to go 40 personnel. I'm not sure, but it's got to be somebody that doesn't leave the field a lot.
That's it, right? What's the position that we see Texas not rotate or have, kind of those substitutions at? Right now, it's linebacker. You can argue a little bit of, that nickel spot with Jahdae Barron, but we're going to see Jalen Gilbo this year, and we're going to see him pretty often in my eyes. He's been that good this spring, and he's carried that over into the summer as a guy that stood out. He was mentioned again by Pete Kwiatkowski as a guy that he's expecting to make that leap into a contributor role once again. It's going to be Anthony Hill in my eyes. And if it's not Anthony Hill, I think it's going to be David Bendo, right? If you want to loosen up Anthony Hill and let him play as free as possible, it's going to be David Benda. If you want to put all that on him and maybe have some rotations with a Maurice Blackwell walking in, a Leon Galafau walking in at times, Darren Gillette, perhaps, with David Benda. Again, it's going to be Anthony Hill. I was looking at it. The two highest snap getters a year ago for Texas, it was obviously Jalen Ford and it was Jahdae Barron. So
Wow.
what does that mean in terms of this year's roster? Well, Anthony Hill in my eyes and Jahdae Barron again. The difference is Jalen Ford played 160 more snaps last year than a Jahdae Barron did. So
Wow.
if that's the case, that's essentially 2.5, 3 full games of football being played
Wow.
on the field, in terms of true snap count. To me, that's very telling that there's one specific linebacker that gets the call. He distributes it across to the rest of his defense. That year, last year, I'm 100% going to say it's going to be Anthony Hill this year.
Man, I didn't realize Jalen Ford played that much more. But I knew he never left the field, though. I mean, that was just eye test watching film. That guy didn't leave the field. Everybody else,
he was there he wasn't leaving, Rod.
He wasn't leaving. Yep.
Yeah, he was the epicenter of what they did on defense. And if Anthony Hill, we talked about this earlier, CJ, if Anthony Hill can come close to those kind of instincts and understanding with his athleticism, watch out. The ceiling for that defense to be high level for sure. All right, let's get to the final coordinator here on the Tuesday live stream. That's obviously Jeff Banks, coaches tight ends and the specialty teams. That's important, obviously. And he talked about, that he's excited about having a all conference caliber kicker returning for sure. Bert Auburn has said his professionalism. The challenge is finding a new punter. He's not real patient, he said, with waiting on this. He discussed the importance of directional punting and skills that they're looking for, effective punt and field goal blocking. And I know you mentioned this earlier, Rod, but on the tight end conversation with Banks, he talked about the tight end position and really singled out Juan Davis, who he says expected to be a feature in their 12 personnel.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I shouldn't have been, but he was just really complimentary of him. Said nobody knows who Juan Davis is very much because he's been a core specialties backup. He's been phenomenal this spring. He's a dynamic player in the passing game. He's a lot more physical in the run game than you would think by looking at his body type. He will knock the crap out of you coming through the A gap on counter plays. So he's basically telling you that that's a guy that if he continues to impress in training camp, that he's going to see the field, and he's kind of earned it through his ability to play special teams and be an impact player there. He's earned the trust, really, of Jeff Banks, who's both special teams coordinator and the tight ends coach. And we were talking more about both the young buck, Jordan Washington, I think, coming out of the spring game, because he had made some great plays in the spring game, looked really good. We know Gunnar Helms, he's a fixture in that room. He's a leader in that room. And then Amari Nyblack, he had mentioned that Amari Nyblack hadn't really been full speed yet. And that when he's full speed, he's going to be, something special and pretty dynamic and really kind of a vertical threat from that tight end position that really you didn't even really have with JT Sanders. So I think he likes the depth of the room. Texas, they want to play more. I mean, Sark says tight end is the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. And they are pretty consistent that 12 personnel is the second most it is the second most utilized personnel grouping behind 11 personnel, one back, one tight end. So how much they want to use it, I think depends on if they believe either of those tight ends can be an every down tight end, a tight end that can be an effective run blocker, but also be a tight end that can win a one-on-one in the passing game. And I think right now you got guys that can do either. I'm not sure Gunnar Helm is a guy that can win consistently one-on-one in the passing game, especially if he's matched up against safety or DB. I think Amari Nyblack probably can. Harold Juan Davis probably can. He says that Juan Davis is an adequate run blocker. I'm not sure about that. It's something I got to see a little bit more of. I think also you start looking at the depth of that room. I just don't know if they got a guy that I trust on every down. And I think they may have to moneyball it situationally.
Were thoughts from Jeff Banks today? They should be more explosive, I think, on return game. Guys like Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, Jonte Cook, they've got plenty of options. Return game, blocking punts. I mean, Sark talked about it at SEC Media Days that when you've got more depth, you can put better players on the special units. And Bert Auburn. What do you think about punter?
I mean, it's an interesting spot. I think it's really telling that Jeff Banks and Steve Sarkisian didn't go out to add a grad transfer punter or somebody out of the portal. They're going to rock with Ian Ratliff, or they're going to rock with Michael Kern. And Jeff Banks mentioned it today that he thinks Kern is going to be a very good piece for this program at some point. Now, I do think his time will have to come a little bit earlier than you'd like at the specialty spots, right? You maybe don't want your first, big moment to come on the road at the big house as a specialist, but that's part of the game. And if that's who you're trusting to be the guy, they better be in a good mindset to step onto the field and perform. But again, I was able to see Michael Kern in San Antonio for the All-American Bowl practices to get an idea of, kind of just how big that leg is, what can he do punting the football? And let me tell you, Cowboy Stadium has the big 80-yard screen, hanging over the football field. If that's where the practices were being played, that screen's getting hit by Michael Kern. He's got himself a pretty good leg. I do believe, Jerry Hamilton's mentioned on previous live streams, and we've talked about it a little bit recently, is, he averaged about 46 yards per punt, in high school. And that's with high school gunners. That's not with, a Trey Wisner, Keaton Crawford, a Keelan Robinson, guys that have been coached up and asked to do what you can do at the specialist spot at the college level. So I do think that you'll see Michael Kern trotted out there first on the first fourth down. Texas decides to punt for. And if that's the case, you got 3 or 4 years of a really talented punter where the ceiling's only up from there.
Good stuff, guys. Do we have any super chats, Matthew, that we can run through, and questions from the audience here on our Tuesday live stream with Aaron Hogan, CJ Vogel, and Rod Babers as we've talked Pete Kwiatkowski and defense. This is offense with Kyle Flood, special teams with Jeff Banks. What position are you keeping your eye on? CJ, I was going to ask you that same question from Cisco. When you're at the open availability tomorrow, we'll be at what are you going to be watching specifically?
Yeah, that wide receiver spot's going to be one that I just want to see who's trotted out there first. It's not going to mean that's what Colorado State sees on the first snap, but it does give me an idea of who comes out of the summer and the spring in that top group. I think that's very important. Is it a Ryan Wingo? Are we going to see him in that first group? I think at some point you see all of them with that first unit. Who are the first 3 guys trotted out there when Texas is in 11 personnel to go live against the defense? That'll be really interesting. Who leads the lines for passes or for routes on air and, those early throwing sessions? It's not the end-all be-all, but it does give you an idea of who, the quote-unquote alpha is in the bunch right now.
I have to assume you'll be looking at the secondary group and who's where and how it shakes out early when we have the window.
Yeah, I do want to see the other cornerback spot opposite Malik Muhammad. I want to see Gavin Holmes got a shout out today, but he and Javion Nicole, I think that's an open competition. I want to see how that works out. And I want to see the edges. I heard PK say today that, and I was I shouldn't have been surprised at all, but when he talking about the edge, he said Barron Sorrell's the leader in that group. And he kind of clearly threw it out there. That's Barron Sorrell's the leader of that group. And I like hearing that because we've been talking about what stands out with the edges, the natural pass rushing ability of Trey Moore, the BGO of a young Colin Simmons, right? The size and just the combination of traits with Ethan Burke and Colin Vosick and how he flashed. But, I don't think we talk enough about the skills that Barron Sorrell is going to bring to the table. And I'm glad that he's established himself as a leader in that room, which means he's the guy that's setting the tone. He's the guy that's leading the drills. He's the guy that is holding others accountable. I like that. And I like that now that's part of what we can say that separates him in that group. And the PK just threw it out there.
Going to be good, guys. As we said to start, where the countdown continues to the opener with Colorado State, but the countdown is over as far as on-field practice and workouts and actual football being played. It's going to be shells for a little while. They'll work their way up. But, man, you got to think, CJ, to wrap things up, year 4, the coaching continuity, a lot of veteran players, the work that they get in June and July through the summer now. You got to feel like, Sark believes, hits the ground on third base here to start this camp, that they feel like they're way ahead of the curve. They can, really the install. They're not worried about that. It's really start to work on the importance of the Michigan game can be started to work on pretty early on here. I got to think there's a lot of emphasis being put on some of the bigger matchups. I mean, that's that's a huge advantage to have so much continuity on this staff and so much time with these guys and these players where you can, as I say, you're starting on third base a little bit here to start drilling down on the nuances of the game. PK talked about the fundamentals of football and tackling and all these things, really getting and honing in on the skills it's going to take to maximize this roster, this team.
Yeah, definitely. That's always, offensive guys like to get out there, throw the ball around, get right on into the offense. Defensive guys kind of get out there, Rod, and you can attest to this. We're going to learn how to tackle again and kind of build it from the ground up. The fundamentals of gator tackling, roll tackling, whatever it might be. Running the pursuit drills. It's all about angles and everything from the bottom up. It's basically like learning how to play defense from day one every single year. But that's part of it, and that's why angles, as we talk about, are so important. But I'm really excited. Guys, it's been a long off season. I know it hasn't felt as long as some off seasons in the past, but tomorrow we finally get to see some guys on the field with helmets on, slinging the ball around in the city of Austin. So that's very exciting. To everybody at home, congratulations. You did it. Football season is here. I know we got Thursday's the first preseason game as well. So it's great when the month of August comes rolling around because you finally feel like the wait's been over. You can kind of look around, read some practice reports, and trust me, we'll have plenty here at On Texas Football. But congratulations to all you guys. Give yourself one of these and one of these because football season's here, and we're excited for it.
And we need it desperately in this country right now because it's political season with the election coming up. I just need something else on my timeline. So thank you, training camp and football.
Rod, you don't have enough USA. You got the wrong kind of USA tweets on your timeline. If that's the case.
Yeah. You know what? That's true. The Olympics should be bringing us all together anyway. I'm not sure it's happening, but right, we should be all on the same team. USA.
Yeah, no spoiler alerts, but go U.S. women's gymnastics. I think they did pretty good today over there in France. I can't tell you for sure, but if you're going to watch that tonight, check it out. That should bring us together for sure, and it's well said. And I know, Rob, the players were thinking last week when it was like 88 degrees. It's like, well, why can't we start now? Can we start now? Now it's 100 degrees.
It was raining and everything, overcast.
It was wonderful. It's like, dang, man, let's go. Now it's 100 again here. If you don't live in Austin, Texas, or Central Texas, we had a week or 10 days of weather we've never seen in July, and now it's back to high pressure and then very, very hot starting tomorrow with it. But it's football, so we don't care. And shout out here on the On Texas Football Channel, all the high school football coaches, middle school coaches, the high school players. You're going back to, Rod, you remember those times, man.
Man.
Coming back from the summer, whether it's college or high school, there's something about it, man. You smell the cut grass, and it's time to play some ball.
I still get the butterflies, man. I still get it. I still get around this time. I still get the butterflies. My body can't do it. My spirit is willing, but the body's not able.
Yeah. Well, shout out to all those who participate and watch the On Texas Football Channel religiously. We appreciate you. Best of luck. Stay healthy. Hydrate yourself. Be ready to go all over the great state and all over wherever you're playing high school ball. Guys, good stuff. Tomorrow it's coffee and football. Bobby mentioned earlier we'll be at the practice tomorrow afternoon, and Sark availability about right after it. So we'll have some conversation with Sark tomorrow coming off the first practice. And as I said, we made it. We've made it to actual football on a field for the Longhorns and across the country. It's going to be a lot of fun. The countdown is on to Colorado State on the 31st of August. Guys, thanks a lot. Matthew, thanks so much. Bobby Burton, everybody that was a part of it tonight. It was a lot of fun. We appreciate it. Claude, you guys have a good one. I know you'll be on tomorrow throughout the day, and the Coffee and Football Show at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning on Texas Football. Y'all have a great night.
Welcome.